Hello, welcome to From the Field to the Boardroom. I'm Renee Dowdy, Sales Enablement Director for SoftwareOne, and I am so excited to be here with Coach Megan Duffy, head coach of Marquette Women's Basketball. Megan, so I'm a fan of your work.
Thank you.
I know that you have the best record in women's basketball history with Marquette, the 6th women's basketball coach for the program, right?
Correct, yeah.
Excellent, and I can't imagine that success happened overnight, as most success doesn't.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how your coaching style has changed over time.
I think, I love the game of basketball first and foremost. So when you're passionate about what you do, it's just the start of it. And I think, I go back to when I was a young kid and learning all the basic skills as a young girl of hard work and building confidence. But it's amazing now as a coach when you're have the hands of 18 to 22-year-olds and you're managing a staff, how just your leadership changes throughout the years. I think the big thing for me has always been about building my experiences. And I look back to my first year as a head coach and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I maybe did some things back then. But again, every year you're evolving and changing with the times and with your team. And there's no reason that every year you can't get a little better with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we're about to head into Women's History Month. Certainly, I think we both have women who've been substantial in our careers. I kind of think about when you are a coach yourself, who coaches you? Who has kind of been influential in your life and helping you to be able to develop who you are as a coach?
Yeah, I've been really lucky to be around some great leaders and role models. My college coach at the University of Notre Dame, Muffet McGraw, is just somebody that impacts my life every day. And she was always about, you can be anything you want to be, you can do it as a female leader. And it's really important that you have that circle around you when you get to those higher leadership stages of just people that you can call, whether it's just to get a little bit of a boost from somebody or say, hey, I have a situation and I need a little advice. And the more you can get it from other female leaders, the better it is. And I think what we're trying to do, across the area here, the country, is to continue to build leaders in all different facets. And I think that's something that has impacted my life with those messages and those words that have empowered me each and every day.
Nice. So oftentimes we think about kind of coaching on that individual basis, and yet you're also managing the functions of a team. Tell me about how you balance that out between caring for the individual and also keeping an eye on where the team needs to go as a whole.
I think everything starts with relationships. And, in my role specifically, we have our college athletes, right, who are so busy in their own worlds. 18 to 22-year-olds are trying to figure things out, whether that's in the classroom or on the court. So the time that we try and spend with them to get to know them, their personalities, their differences, and ultimately it's putting all those pieces of the puzzle together to be great, to fight through adversity, all the things that go into a college basketball season. And then the other unique facet is I also have a staff around me who are striving to maybe be a head coach someday, just trying to be a great assistant, maybe a younger person in the field that's trying to just get in and get their 2 feet in the door with it. And so it's a lot of just managing different personalities. I think the big thing is making sure, as any leader does, have a standard, have a culture, have your core values that you're always going back to, no matter the pieces to the puzzle, and trying to empower those in your group, whether it's your young student athletes or your assistant coaches, of how to get them to be their best at everything they do, how to fight through some adversity through your season. And again, it's a lot of time and relationships that are being built along the way with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how do you help your players to balance, because I was thinking about this as I was reflecting on, getting a chance to talk with you today, and I think that oftentimes we can get really focused on the numbers in terms of like number of wins and what were the points on the board. How do you help your players to see beyond just those statistics and also really look at what's happening to lead to getting to that result? Because I know that's a challenge that we face sometimes as well.
I think at the end of the day, your job is to win or to hit a certain number, whether it's the business world or whether it's college basketball. And I think that part of it is really cool too, because you see the bigger picture, you see the goals, you see what you have to achieve. But all those numbers and goals you have is all based on the day-to-day work you do, the foundation you put in place, the relationships you have with each other, everybody working together through that same mission and that same goal. And specific to our young women, they have a lot of things outside of just basketball too. So you're managing things on and off the court. With women too, we talk about women's empowerment with all that, and they want to win, they want to go to the NCAA tournament, the staff wants to be successful as well, but sometimes it's just as simple as how we treat each other, how we walk in that door and attack everything that coach gives to them with a positive attitude. Being able to fight through resiliency. Everybody has challenges every day, so even managing that. And when you put that bucket and pieces of all together and kind of mesh it together, that's our job as leaders to do that. But I think that's the greatest part about it, finding that balance of the human element of leading and the human element of your staff or your players, and then you mesh that in with, the winning at the end of that 40 minutes in a basketball game or hitting that mark. And I kind of nerd out on the numbers and the stats. I love that piece about coaching. I love when we go into a game and it's like a mini test. You got to analytically figure it out, and how do we get just a little bit better at this, or maybe we failed at something. I love that piece about it, but there's also that piece of the relationship part and the performance part that you got to get your people reaching that max potential, so those numbers do ultimately hit.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know about you, I love to see the patterns in data. So being able to look at it and go, can I unlock something here that maybe no one else knows is going on, and then that's going to help us to solve a bigger problem. Because I think in some ways, the numbers can be initially the kind of like where there's smoke, there's fire, right? To tell you like something's going on here, something's happening there, positive or potentially negative. And when we ignore those and kind of focus perhaps too much on the relational element, we miss the data that can help to drive us, and vice versa. If it was solely data, there'd be a whole lot of business and leadership books that wouldn't need to be written because it would just be as simple as sheer willpower and follow the numbers. And we know it's far more complex and nuanced than that.
How do you do it with your team at SoftwareOne? I mean, getting all the pieces together and matching the metrics and trying to get the max best performance out of them too.
Yeah, what I found, and I think especially this year, what I'm seeing in our team that I love is this real focus on clarity around the data, putting the best subject matter experts really there in front of the data, making data-driven decisions while surrounding them with others who are really capable of being able to take that data and help to make it meaningful. Because at the end of the day, if we survey a whole group of CIOs and we know that this issue is the top issue for them in terms of what they're thinking about, like right now, data and AI is a huge topic of conversation.
Amazing, isn't
it is. And there's there's fear associated with it, right? And there's also excitement. And with those emotions, if we don't tie some data around that and we don't help to prepare our field sellers to be able to speak to that, it can be really easy for someone who's leading a business to make a decision solely based on gut instinct and not necessarily following the data and seeing where things are going to go, wait a second, I can make a really rational decision here that may be partially led by the way I see where this is going, but also knowing that I have a ton of other people relying on me to be able to make that happen.
Absolutely.
And so while I think certainly in the student athlete perspective, you encounter women who are balancing a whole host of things. Ultimately, you all know that's a life skill they're going to be taking with them once they're ideally in the boardroom setting, right, and leading businesses. And that's something that I think we always have to keep front of mind as well with our own employees. That yes, like we see the data, we see these metrics that we know that can move things forward, and yet these are whole people with whole lives outside of SoftwareOne as well. And so how are we thoughtful about caring for that while we're helping to drive high performance and helping to drive, a workforce that wants to be able to commit to excellence.
And I think when you talk about numbers and what you have to hit too, I think how it relates to, college basketball, as it relates to your field too, there's a process and you see the end result, but the fun part I always think, and the challenge and a little bit of stress, a little bit is putting that process in place and then putting your talent together and go, let's go figure it out. Let's help our clients, let's have the best versions of ourselves in this process. And we're talking about it now as we get down the stretch towards the NCAA tournament and March Madness. Like if we look too far ahead, we know what we want to get to, we know that those numbers, but if we're not still locked into the day-to-day process, and that's as simple as how we treat each other, how we're motivating each other, along with the actual work we have to do, I don't think those numbers are ever met.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it makes me think about the team culture that you've built. How would you describe the team culture of Marquette women's basketball? Does it change over the years with kind of the cyclical nature of students coming in and ideally graduating, right?
Yeah, I just even think the 5 years I've been at Marquette, it has changed so much, and for a lot of different reasons. In our sport, there's now NIL, there's so much more social media where they're just consuming all this data, and you're trying to kind of strip it down and want them to be successful in the classroom room, on the court, how they treat each other, how they go into, you know, their environment at Marquette. And ultimately, if you put that foundation in place, we're pretty confident once they go into the real world, it's going to be people that you want to hire and that are going to be super successful. You know, for us with culture, we have our core values. We talk about it every single day. We make it very realistic to the day, our goals, what we want to reach. But I think the day we say, hey, our culture has arrived, or our standards is in place, is the day our culture, you know, goes the wrong direction. So we're constantly tweaking it. Every team's a little bit different. Every coaching staff's a little bit different. But again, it's still around the values of our work ethic, you know, having a purpose in what we do, bouncing back from failure. I think that's the big thing with kids today, of just like, you got to be able to fail a little bit and then push forward. So that's a little bit of our culture. And again, we don't say, oh, we got a great culture. We prove it every day by our work, how we treat each other. And again, just trusting that stacking days will build the culture ultimately that will help us achieve our results.
Nice. That's amazing. And it's the old phrase of culture eats strategy for breakfast,
Yeah.
right? So both on the court and off the court, it remains true.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Thank you so much for your insights today. It was wonderful to get a chance to chat and really learn more about how the Marquette women's basketball team is doing. I look forward to continuing to follow you all this season.
Yeah, thanks, Renee.
Awesome.
And thanks for the great work you guys are doing here at SoftwareOne as well.
Great. Thank you.